reproduction is a very important biological process where an organism gives rise to its young ones or offspring similar to itself. The transfer of the sperms into the female genital tract, we call it as insemination. The process of formation of the male gamete called sperm in the seminiferous tubules of the testis is called spermatogenesis. Gametogenesis involves two very important processes, namely spermatogenesis and oogenesis. Hello everyone, welcome back to yet another revision session of second PUC chapter 3 called Human Reproduction. Myself B. Shobharani from the Department of Biology, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, the Temple of Excellence. So in this particular session, let us discuss the very important concepts from examination point of view of chapter 3 of your second PUC syllabus called Human Reproduction. What is the weightage of marks for this particular chapter? So the weightage of marks for this particular chapter is 7 marks. So what is the weightage of marks? According to the board, it is 7 marks, where 1 marker question you get 2 questions and 5 marker question you get 1 question. But again, as I said, in 5 marker question you may have split question 3 plus 2, that is 5, or 2 plus 2 plus 1, that is 5. So the weightage of marks for this particular chapter is 7 marks, 1 marker question 2 questions, whereas 5 marker question 1 question, or we may also have a split question like 3 plus 2 or 2 plus 2 plus 1, right? Now, let us discuss as to what are you all going to study in this particular chapter. So what is the very important concepts you all are going to study in this particular chapter? As we all know that reproduction is a very important biological process where an organism gives rise to its young ones or offspring similar to itself. And we know that reproduction is very important for the continuity of species, generation after generation. Now, when we are studying about human reproduction, we know that human beings are sexually reproducing and viviparous animals. I think we know what are oviparous animals, viviparous and ovoviviparous animals. So what do you mean by viviparous animals? Those organisms which give birth to young ones are called as viviparous animals. So human beings are sexually reproducing and viviparous animals. As I said, reproduction is a very important characteristic feature of living organisms and particularly human beings. So what is reproduction? As I defined, reproduction is the biological process by which organisms give birth or give rise to a new organism or a new offspring, and this offspring grows, matures, reproduces and die. So as we know that during the life of an organism, there is birth, growth and death. As we know, whoever is born has to die one day. But reproduction is one such very important process which enables the continuity of species generation after generation. In humans, as we know, they are sexually reproducing organism. We know there are 2 types of reproduction, asexual and sexual. But human beings are sexually reproducing viviparous animals. So as we know, in human beings, the reproductive systems are different. For example, we have different male reproductive system. As we know, sexes are separate in human. There is a separate female reproductive system. So they are different. And in males, we call testis as the male reproductive organ and ovary as the female reproductive organ. Then the reproductive events in human includes the following very important events. First one is called gametogenesis. What is gametogenesis? It is the process of formation of gametes, that is the male gamete called sperm and the female gamete called ovum in the reproductive organs, namely the male sperm in testis and ovum in the ovary. So that process of formation of gametes is called as gametogenesis. Then insemination, it is the transfer of the sperm into the female genital tract. The transfer of the sperms into the female genital tract, we call it as insemination. So once the sperm comes in contact with the ovum, fertilization takes place, that is the fusion of the male gamete with the female gamete called ovum, resulting in the process of formation of zygote is called fertilization. So once the zygote is formed, it undergoes a developmental stage where it is called as blastocyst stage. And what is implantation? The attachment of the embryo or the blastocyst to the endometrium wall of the uterus of the female is called implantation. So it is the process of attachment of the embryo to the endometrium wall is called as implantation. Gestation period of embryo development, we call it as gestation period or pregnancy period, where in human beings it is 9 months. So it is gestation period means the process of development of embryo. It takes place around 9 months in human beings. Then parturition, delivery of the child or the delivery of the baby is called as parturition. So all these are the very important events that take place in the reproductive cycle of a human being. Next, moving on to a brief synopsis. Well, let us, as I said, in human beings, the sexes are separate. So there is a separate male reproductive system called testes. So a pair of testes, as we know, the male reproductive system is located in the pelvic region, having a pair of testes, then having accessory ducts, accessory glands, and external genitalia. Then the female reproductive system is located in the pelvic region, having a pair of ovaries, then fallopian tube, uterus, then vagina, then external genitalia. So that is about the female reproductive system. Gametogenesis, as I said, it is a process of formation of gametes in the primary sex organ is called as gametogenesis. So the process of formation of the male gamete called sperm in the seminiferous tubules of the testis is called spermatogenesis. It is called spermatogenesis. And whereas in case of females, the process of formation of ovum in the ovary is called as oogenesis. It is called as oogenesis. So very important events, that is gametogenesis, that is spermatogenesis in male and oogenesis in female. Now moving on to menstrual cycle, as we already discussed in the previous chapter, when we study about the reproductive cycle, there is a very important reproductive cycle called a menstrual cycle, it's a reproductive cycle which takes place in the primates. It takes place in the primates. That in the female, hence it is called as a menstrual cycle, like for example human beings, ape, etc. And this menstrual cycle has different phases, like the menstrual phase, then the follicular phase, then the ovulatory phase, and the luteal phase. So all those are the very important 4 phases that is taking place in the menstrual cycle of female. And the onset of menstruation is called menarche, and the cessation or stoppage of menstrual cycle when a female attains an age of around 40 to 50 years is called as menopause. Then fertilization. So once the male gamete comes in contact with the female gamete, the process of fusion takes place, and that process resulting in the process of formation of a zygote is called fertilization. So as I said, the zygote undergoes a series of mitotic cell division to become a blastocyst and having a trophoblast, and this implantation is nothing but the attachment of the blastocyst to the endometrium wall of the uterus of the female is called as implantation. Pregnancy, as I said, it is the period of embryo development. As I said, in human beings, it is around 9 months. So the pregnancy and embryonic development you are going to study, and parturition, childbirth. So once the fetus is completely developed, so there is a very important event taking place that is called parturition or childbirth, where a very important hormone called oxytocin plays a very important role during the process of parturition. Then lactation. So almost, as I said, human beings are mammals. As you know, they feed the young ones with the milk through the mammary glands. As I said, mammary gland is also a structurally and functionally associated gland along with the female reproductive system, which helps during the process of pregnancy. So almost at the end of pregnancy, the mammary glands will produce milk, and that will help in feeding the young ones once it is born. So that process is called as what? Lactation. So all these are the very important things which you come across in this particular chapter called human reproduction. Now, As I said, now let us discuss some of the questions that are frequently asked, or the type of questions that are going to appear from this particular chapter. As I said, let us discuss 1 marker question. As I said, the weightage of marks for this particular chapter is 7 marks. So 1 marker question you may get 2, and 5 marker question 1. So let us discuss what will be the type of questions that are asked for 1 marker question. As I said, in second PUC board examination, answering the first 1 mark question itself is very important, because there is no choice and you have to write the exact answer for the 1 marker question. No half right and half wrong answers will not be awarded marks. Completely right answers only will be awarded full 1 mark. So you should be very careful while answering the 1 marker question. So first one, define puberty. So the period of life when person's sexual organs mature. So as I said, the male will attain puberty and the female will attain puberty, where the reproductive organs will become reproductively active. So that stage is called as puberty. So the period of life when a person's sexual organ mature. Then name the primary male sex organ. So which is the main primary sex organ in case of male? It is testes. Now what are the functions of scrotum in male reproductive system? As we know that the testes are located in extra-abdominal in a cavity called scrotum, which maintains a low temperature. So what are the functions of scrotum in male reproductive system? So they carry and support testes and provide, as I said, their testes are located extra-abdominal within a pouch-like structure called scrotum. So they carry and support testes and provide 2.5 degrees centigrade temperature, lower than the internal body temperature for testes, in order to function normally, right? So that is the very important function of scrotum. Next, name the primary female sex organ. Ovaries. That is ovaries, a pair of ovaries which is located in the pelvic region. Name the accessory female sex or accessory females. What do you mean by accessory? That which supports the main primary sex organ in female, like the fallopian tube, uterus, cervix, vagina, external genitalia, and the mammary gland. Though mammary glands are not directly involved in the process of it's not a part of a female reproductive, but structurally and functionally they are supporting the female reproductive system. So fallopian tube, uterus, cervix, vagina, external genitalia. Then mention the site of fertilization in human, where exactly the process of fusion of the male gamete with the female gamete called ovum is taking place. So at the junction of ampullary isthmic region of fallopian tube. So there is one junction, as we know, the ampulla and isthmic region. So between the ampullary and isthmic region, the process of fusion of the male gamete with the female gamete, resulting in the process of formation of a diploid single cell called zygote, takes place in which junction or which region? It is called ampullary isthmic region. Then define spermatogenesis. As I said, gametogenesis involves 2 very important processes, namely spermatogenesis and oogenesis. So what is spermatogenesis? Process of formation and maturation of spermatozoa in seminiferous tubules to sperms is called as what? Spermatogenesis. Then define oogenesis. Process of formation and maturation of haploid egg in ovaries by meiosis is called oogenesis. So define oogenesis, formation and maturation of haploid egg in ovaries by meiosis is called oogenesis. Next, what is semen? Semen, as we know, it is a very important, bears the sperms. So it is sticky, whitish, liquid containing sperms produced by male sex organ. So what is semen? It is a sticky, whitish, liquid containing sperms produced by male sex organ. Next, what is LH? Surge. LH stands for luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone. When will this hormone be in higher production, or when will it be high? And that LH, when the LH is very high, secretion is very high, it is called LH surge. So when will it be? So what is LH surge? So this is a very common question which is asked in the board examination. So it refers to the maximum level of LH during the middle of menstrual cycle, and it is very much important for ovulation, for the expulsion of ova. So what is LH surge? It refers to the maximum level of LH during the middle of menstrual cycle. Now 5-marker question. Explain the structure of human sperm. As we know that sperm is the male reproductive unit or a male gamete which takes part in the process of reproduction, in human reproduction. So explain the structure of human sperm. So whenever a 5-marker question is asked, as we know that we need to draw diagrams wherever necessary. Here they have not mentioned, but it is a 5-marker question. So we have to understand that we need to explain the structure of a human sperm with a neat labeled diagram. So this is the diagram of a sperm, where you can see a cap-like structure called acrosome, which is covered by plasma membrane. The whole of the sperm is divided into head, and this is the tail, and this is neck, and this is the middle piece. So what are the 3 very important regions of a sperm? So what is a sperm? Human sperm is microscopic, flagellated cell having tadpole shape. You can see the shape of the sperm. It is tadpole shape. It is measured about 60 microns in length and has 3 main parts, namely head, neck and tail. What are the parts that are included under the head region of a sperm? It is a pear shaped and it is measured around 4 microns to 5 microns in length and 2.5 microns to 3.5 microns in width. And it has a haploid nucleus and a cap-like structure called acrosome, which plays a very great role at the time of fertilization. Then entire head is surrounded by a membrane called plasma membrane. So the human sperm is divided into head, neck and tail, and head is a pear-shaped structure and it is measured around 4 microns to 5 micron in length and 2.5 to 3.5 micron in width. And it has a haploid nucleus and a cap-like structure called acrosome, which has a great role to play at the time of fertilization. And the entire head is surrounded by a membrane called plasma membrane. That is about the head. Moving on to the neck region. It is the narrow middle region between head and tail. It is measured about 0.3 micron in length. So what is neck region? It is a very small, narrow middle region between head and tail. It's a very small region between head and tail, measuring around 0.3 micron in length. It has 2 centrioles, namely it is called proximal centriole and the other one is called the distal centriole. Next, tail. 3 main regions of the tail are middle piece, main piece and the end piece. So what are all the 3 very important parts of a sperm when we study the structure of human sperm? Head, neck and tail. So what are the 3 very important features of the human sperm? Head, neck and tail. Now, give a schematic label diagram representation of oogenesis. So this is a very common question which is asked in the board exam, where it is asked only to write the schematic. So you need to write the schematic diagram of oogenesis. As I said, oogenesis is a very, very important process of formation of the female gamete called ova, which takes place in the follicle of the ovary. So it is very important. So you need to explain the schematic diagram, where we know that oogonia, the formation of oogonia will start from the embryonic time only, and no more oogonia are added or deleted. So that means the oogonia will undergo first to form what? Primary oocyte. That will take place during the embryonic period only, and the primary oocyte will undergo first meiotic division to form first polar body and secondary oocyte, and secondary oocyte will undergo second meiotic division to form what? Secondary polar body, second and ovum. So this whole thing you have to explain. As we know, the whole of the oogenesis has been divided into 3 stages, that is the multiplication phase, or 3 phases called multiplication phase, growth phase and maturation phase. All that you have to explain in this schematically. Then explain various phases of menstrual cycle. As I said, it's a very important concept from examination point of view, which is usually asked in the board examination. So what is menstrual cycle? The cycle of physiological changes in the ovaries and the lining of the uterus from the beginning of the next is called as the menstrual cycle. So as I said, the onset of menstrual cycle after a female attains puberty is called menstruation, and the cessation or stoppage of menstrual cycle once a woman reaches an age of 40 to 50 years. 50 years is called as what? Menopause. So the cycle of physiological changes in the ovaries and the lining of the uterus from the beginning of the next. What is the duration? The duration of the menstrual cycle in females is around 28 to 29 days. So what are the various phases of menstrual cycle and the duration of each phase of the menstrual cycle? Menstrual phase, which is also called as menses, or it is also called as bleeding, as bleeding takes place, and it is called the first 5 days of the menstrual cycle, you call it as menstrual phase. Then pre-ovulatory phase, or what we call it as follicular phase, which will take place 6 to 13 days, and there is multiplication, or what we call development of follicles, hence it is called pre-ovulatory phase or proliferate phase. Then the ovulatory phase, which will take place on the 14th day, which is very, very important, where the ovum is expelled out. So expulsion of ova on the 14th day of the menstrual cycle is called ovulation. It is called as ovulation or ovulatory phase. Post-ovulatory phase, that is after the ovulation, which is also called as secretory phase, which is between 15th to 28th day of the luteal phase, that is about 14 days. So these are the very important points which you need to write in the board examination. If at all a question like this is asked, explain various phases of menstrual cycle. First you have to write what is menstrual cycle, and then write down the different phases of menstrual cycle. Then for 5-mark question, you may get like this: write the differences between spermatogenesis and oogenesis. So spermatogenesis, what does it? It is the process of formation of sperm. Here it is the process of formation of egg. Then, which is the site where exactly the process of spermatogenesis is taking place? It is taking place in the seminiferous tubules of testes. Which is the site for oogenesis, or the region where it is going to take place? It is ovary. Then, third point, it is a continuous process, whereas oogenesis is a discontinuous process, because from the time of embryonic development, then there is a stoppage, then after the female attains puberty, then it will start. So it is a continuous process, it is a discontinuous. It starts during puberty stage, but this starts during fetal stage only, embryonic stage only. Then growth phase is very short, where in case of spermatogenesis, but the growth phase is very prolonged, very long, duration is very long. As I said, in oogenesis there is the multiplication phase, growth phase and maturation. The growth phase is very much prolonged in case of oogenesis than compared to spermatogenesis. Then here, the primary spermatocyte produce 2 spermatocytes, but here primary oocyte produces secondary oocyte and 1 polocyte. Then again secondary spermatocyte divide and form 2 spermatids. Here secondary oocyte divide and form 1 second polar body and 1 ovum and 1 ovum. So at the end, first polar body disintegrate, then the secondary oocyte will undergo second meiotic division to form second polar body and ovum. Then polar bodies are not formed here, but here polar bodies are formed. Then complete within testes, here complete in female reproductive tract, as I said. Thanks. The process ends at death, process ends at menopause. So these are the differences between spermatogenesis and oogenesis, which you need to write if at all it is asked for a 5-marker. Even if it is asked for 2-marker question, minimum 4 differences you will have to write, where each difference will carry half a mark. Then this is the hormonal control of the human male reproductive system. As we know, hypothalamus plays a very great role. As you know, the secretions of the hypothalamus will go to the anterior pituitary, that is FSH and LH. So here, it will have a negative feedback. Here you can see FSH will act on Sertoli cells, will act as inhibin, will help in spermatogenesis, and whereas LH will act on Leydig cells to produce, that is the male hormone called testosterone. Then phases of menstrual cycle, as we already discussed. 14th day we call it as, so what is the first phase? Menstrual phase. First is the menstruation phase, that is from 5th day, that is from the, as you know, it is starting again from the next, that is that from 28th day it will go. So menstruation phase, then comes the follicular phase, next the ovulatory phase and the luteal phase, and back to the, that is from the luteal phase, again it will go back to the first menstrual cycle. As I said, menstrual cycle is divided into 4 phases. What are the 4 very important phases that a menstrual cycle involves? That is the menstruation or menstrual cycle, followed by follicular phase or proliferative phase also it is called, then the ovulatory phase, then the luteal phase, right? So this is how you need to understand the phases of menstrual cycle. Then human reproduction, that is male reproductive system. Already this is like a summary. So here you can see the male reproductive system, which is the main primary sex organ. What are the things that are involved in the primary sex organ? We have testes. Then testes are located extra-abdominal in a pouch-like structure called scrotum, and you find the seminiferous tubules. Then the secondary sex organs are the accessory ducts, where you come across rated testes, then epididymis, vas efferentia, vas deferens, then accessory glands like the seminal vesicles, prostate gland, bulbourethral gland you come across. So that is the prostate gland, seminal glands, and bulbourethral glands, which is also called as corpus gland. Then as I said, the accessory ducts will include what? Rated testes, vasa efferentia, epididymis, and vas deferens. Then human female reproductive system, as you know, that the primary sex organ is the ovary. Then we have this external genitalia has mons pubis, labia majora and labia minora, then clitoris, urethra, and vagina. Here accessory ducts will include the oviducts, uterus, and cervix. Accessory glands, as I said, mammary gland is indirectly helping the female reproductive system to help in lactation. So this is about the female reproductive system. Hope you all have understood what type of questions are asked from this particular chapter, chapter 3 of your second PUC syllabus called Human Reproduction. As I said, the weightage of marks for this particular chapter is 8 marks, and the concepts what you learn in this particular chapter is very important. Not just the knowledge what you gain from this particular chapter is also very much important in the lifetime of an individual. So hope I have discussed what type of questions are going to appear, like what might be the pattern of questions that are going to appear for the board exam pertaining to this particular chapter, chapter 3 of your second PUC syllabus called Human Reproduction. Thank you.